Hello again everyone. Once upon a time, the idea of owning a camera lens as bright as f/0.95 was merely a pipe dream for most people. Wherever you could find the few of them that actually existed, they would cost many thousands of dollars and have pretty dreadful image quality. Nowadays, they are a bit more affordable, and Chinese lens manufacturers in particular seem to be in a flurry to release as many as possible. Perhaps they're quite big sellers, who knows? So, enter Exhibit A, the Brightin Star 50mm f/0.95. Like its many competitors, it's for full-frame mirrorless cameras and comes in Sony E, Canon RF, Nikon Z, Leica L and Fuji X mounts. And it undercuts the price of its competitors, costing only $390 or £320 in the UK. That is an incredibly low price for a full-frame f/0.95 lens. It's crazy, considering that it can get you images like this. I would like to thank Brightin Star for sending me a copy of this lens for testing, although as usual, this is a totally independent review. We'll be looking at both its strengths and its weaknesses. Let's start with its build quality. The lens is completely made of metal and actually looks quite nicely designed at first glance. Its rear mount is also made of metal but does not feature weather sealing. The lens's focus ring turns fantastically smoothly, but only about 170 degrees. I wish there was just a bit more precision there. The lens suffers from focus breathing, zooming in a bit as you focus more closely to your subject. Then comes the aperture control ring. It clicks very positively every full f-stop, although obviously you can set it between those f-stops if you want and you fiddle about a little bit. The lens has a 62mm filter thread size and it weighs 750 grams, so it does have a bit of weight to it. It comes with a poorly designed built-in metallic lens hood. It cannot be removed or even fixed in any position, and so it wobbles about all over the place all the time. Bit of a thoughtless design there, but apart from that, overall, the lens's build quality is really very solid without any serious problems. Let's take a look at image quality now. I'll be testing this one out on a Sony a7R III with its full-frame 42MP sensor. No in-camera corrections are available on this lens. At f/0.95, we see pretty good sharpness in the middle of the image, but contrast is very low, and there's a touch of purple colour fringing here too. Let's look over in the corners. When we look at the very edges, any kind of resolution suddenly vanishes. Stop down to f1.2 and there's just a tiny bit more brightness in those corners, and back in the middle we see quite a lot more contrast, but still a little purple fringing. f1.4 looks a little better again, but stop down to f2 for excellent image quality there. Back in the corners we see more brightness and sharpness, although the very edges still are dreadful. We see gradual improvements in sharpness each time you stop down, from f4 to f8 to f11, leading to great sharpness from corner to corner, albeit at quite a dark aperture. Well, there you go, some predictable results here for a low budget f/0.95 lens. At the brightest aperture we see low contrast and some corner softness. Stop down a little for a punchier image in the middle, and stop down a lot for sharp quality in the image corners. Okay, let's take a look at distortion and vignetting now. The lens projects fairly strong barrel distortion, and of course at f/0.95 the corners are very dark. Stop down to f1.4 and f2 for a lot more brightness in those corners. Let's see about close-up image quality now. The lens can focus down to 50cm, just a little further than average for a 50mm lens. Close-up image quality at f/0.95 is some of the worst I've ever seen, as any kind of brightness or contrast goes completely out the window. We see tiny improvements at f1.2 and f1.4. At f2, picture quality finally begins to take shape, and at f2.8, close-up image quality becomes very sharp again. Okay, let's see how the lens performs against bright light. Ouch, what a mess. Like a mosquito at a nudist beach, I don't even know where to start here in trying to describe it, so I'll just let you see it for yourself. Anyway, moving on, let's see about coma levels. Here we identify another pretty huge problem. Just look at the state of those bright lights in the image corners. That is some of the strongest smearing I've yet seen. At f1.4 it's slightly reduced, and at f2 and f2.8 much better. Let's zoom out and look at sunstars now. Already at f2.8 they are there. At f5.6 and f11 they get even brighter, living up to the Brightin Star company name, I suppose. Now let's see about the quality of this lens's bokeh. It is soft but gets a little awkward in places. At f0.95 specular highlights have an extreme and even slightly pointy cat's eye shape to them. Deeply out of focus backgrounds look lovely though. And finally, let's take a look at longitudinal chromatic aberration. Or rather, let's not, because the terrible close-up image quality prohibits it at f0.95. It's only really at f2 that any kind of image begins to emerge here, and some purple and green colour fringing is visible. At f2.8 and f4 though, it's largely gone. Overall, testing this thing out was quite an interesting experience, but considering its amazingly low price, I can't say I'm disappointed by it really. It produces perfectly usable images, which aren't really any worse or softer than its competitors, and at a lower price. It has the usual optical issues of an inexpensive f0.95 lens, including some horrifying close-up image quality, huge flaring and coma levels. Honestly, it's not optically a very great lens, but at a price like this, you can't argue with that really, and so, if you're looking for a very inexpensive option, it does just about come recommended. Well, who would have thought it? A full-frame f0.95 lens for under $400. Would you pay that much for this lens? Let me know in the comments below, and if you'd like to support this channel and get all kinds of bonus content in the meantime, then check out my Patreon page in the description below. A bientôt tout le monde, see you next time.